the last session of our EuroTcl, I can introduce myself, so that's quite nice. And after me, Ben is giving a last talk. I will talk about what it's called CAWT, or in German I often say CAWT, but in English it's CAWT, which is a little bit long, so I typically call it CAWT, which stands for Automation With Tcl. And yeah, what it's all about, or what I will present. I have already given a short introduction, I think 3 years ago on the EuroTcl. At that time it was still in development. I will talk a little bit about the architecture and the history of CAWT. Then I will show you some use cases I use more privately for that stuff, and a little bit about how we are using it at work to, as I write, it's lazy man's documentation and poor man's requirement tool. So what it's good about, or good for, most, or let's say Office applications and other Windows applications typically have a COM interface where you can automate these applications. Let's say the tools I am using mostly are the Office application, Excel, Word and PowerPoint. Of course, mostly at work, and other applications like Outlook or Google Earth, MATLAB, Internet Explorer, they also have a COM interface where you can automate them. So how does it look like? Here I have a little Tcl script which first fills an Excel, down so I can see it, which fills an Excel table with some locations here in Munich, generates a graphic around about the Munich tour, and then it opens up a window, standard TK buttons, and in the background it has started Google Earth. And now I can click on the TK button and it says to Google Earth, okay, go to that direction and look down in some direction. So here we are in the in the inner town of Munich, and the last location would be where I live. That's in the southwest. It's, as you can see, the end or the surrounding of Munich, so we are living a little bit more outside of Munich. So that's a small example how CAWT can be used to automate different Microsoft applications. So how it does look like from the architecture view. The main basis for COM automation is, here I'm using TWAPI. In former times I have used the TCOM interface, but as this is not developed further and it's only available in 32 bits, I have worked together with a developer of TWAPI, Ashok. Surname I don't know, it's a little bit... it's a little bit complicated, so I always call him Ashok. And he has, in the newest, or since version 4 of TWAPI, the COM interface is now feature complete, so you can use it as a replacement of TCOM. On top of that, I have written a small library which holds all the basic automation tools, so you don't have to program at the, let's say, lower level of COM interface. And then I have different modules living in separate namespaces for all the modules I'm supporting. And as I marked with a green color, the main applications which are, let's say, which have lots of high-level functionality are for Excel, Word and PowerPoint. The others are more or less experimental, and if anybody needs more functionality from these modules, they are free to extend the stuff. Here a little bit when I started with that. It's nearly 7 years ago, and that the need for, let's say, automation. As I'm a programmer, I'm lazy, doing manual, tedious stuff, and I had to, at work I had to process hundreds of Excel tables where they have work packages defined, and every developer gave me that Excel sheets, and I have to calculate all that stuff, and you got changing Excel tables every day. So I don't want to do that manually. I don't want to go into Visual Basic, so I thought, okay, doesn't Tcl have something for that to automate that? And there I wrote, let's say, my first utility procedures to gather all these Excel tables and compute summaries and stuff like this. Later on, that time I called it tcl. Then a few years later I expanded that stuff for Word automation. Then I called it Tcl Office, and I thought, okay, also very specialized for the Office package. And in 2012 I got the idea, and I tried different other modules which worked, and then I've got the final name Automation With Tcl. So it's not specified to the Microsoft package or the Office packages, but you can in principle use it for every application which has a COM interface. And since last year I have open sourced it. It was open source already, but I put it onto SourceForge, so anybody who has the need or is willing to contribute can add his own features or bug reports and stuff like this. And in the beginning of this year I have made some major changes, so I have namespace ensemble, that stuff, so it looks nicer. You don't have to put the double columns between namespace and procedure names. And I also have written several utilities, so Office, for example, has lots of enumerations, and you always had to write double word, double column, and the enumeration name. Now it's enough to just put in the name of the enumeration, and it automatically transfers it into the integer enumeration. So what I am using it at home or in lots of places, let's say as Excel was a starting point and is also still, let's say, the major usage. There are different sub-modules in the Excel packages to handle Excel tables, Word tables, tableless tables, so-called raw images, which are just a bunch of raw values, MATLAB files, CSV files, and MediaWiki tables, wiki tables, and HTML tables. Most of these tables you can convert from one to the other and put them into Excel or get them out of Excel and write out as a HTML table or a wiki table and stuff like this. So that's one of the usages of the handling of tables. Then this is an image of mine, and some of you may know I have my, let's say, personal Swiss knife application, which is called poApps. That's portable apps, or Paul Obermeier's apps, so you can translate it anywhere. And I have, on the Windows side, I have put several utilities. So one of them is an image viewer. I have some functionality to count the colors in the table, to generate histogram values, and everything which is tabular data here in the application displayed in the table list. You can also put into Excel, and you can also put images into Excel, but not as a pure bitmap image, but as background cell colors. So the screenshot you see here, if I start Excel, you see from the column values, we are here at column GM, and here we are at row 267. So if I go over one of the, which you don't see, extend the column, you see it's really not a bitmap image, but each cell is filled with a corresponding color. It takes a lot of time to put that in. and it doesn't make any use, but it's fun.
I still search about
Other stuff in my utility, I have a directory comparison tool, and using the CAWT modules, I can also then compare Excel and Word files on Windows, of course. Then I have written a small application which uses CAWT for managing PowerPoint presentations. Well, I have some for EuroTcl, I have already lots of presentations, and of course at work I have several subdirectories with all of presentations, and it's always difficult, you know, okay, I have held presentation about this and that topic, and they are from different years and all that stuff, and to click through all these presentations is quite tedious. So I have written a small utility. You have session, you say, okay, this directory with several subdirectories, they are all my presentations, and you click on the generate previews, so it exports each presentation, prints out thumbnail images, and then you can quickly loop through all your presentation and build up a new presentation from that. I will show you at the end, because if I call it now, then it would close this application or this presentation. The other one for the documentation of CAWT, this is fully automated. I'm also using CAWT itself to document itself. I have, let's say, the CAWT procedures are documented as a reference in HTML files. I'm using the rough documentation tool also by Ashok. And I have, let's say, some images which are held in PowerPoint presentations. And I have a Word template where I write by hand general stuff, and all the stuff which is which changes heavily because I have a new procedure and stuff like this will be generated or inserted into the user manual automatically. So I have a little script, CAWT documentation, and in the Word document I have several keywords, and it produces then a Word and a PDF file automatically. So I can show you. This calls the script. It opens the PowerPoint presentation with the images, and then it opens the Word template, and here it says, okay, I'm filling, let's say for each module I have an empty table, and it fills with from the current state of CAWT, it fills all these tables with a short description of the procedures and stuff like this. And as you can see, I don't know if you can read it, you see the Excel module has 191 procedures, Word has 98, so you see from the number of utility procedures for each module how long it, or how, and now I have the fully documented Word and PDF file, and I can upload it to my web page.
You're really lazy.
Okay, some notes about how I'm using that stuff at work. We have an internal project which is a 3D renderer which generates real-time images not only in the visible domain but also in the infrared domain. And for that it's only internal use, but we have to fulfill some standards. And to these standards are, let's say we have to generate at least these 4 documents. Also small requirement specification, we need a user manual, we need an assessment instruction, test testing instruction, we need an assessment protocol, and we need a software architecture. And of course, these have to be submitted to our ERP, SAP system in a special Word format according to our company rules and all that stuff. So these 4 documents. The software architecture, of course, this does not change too much. This is handwritten, and all the other 4 documents, they are like the CAWT manual. These are just templates with keywords in it, and because we often have new requirements, the project A needs a new functionality, or project B needs a new functionality, and if you have a new feature, you have a new requirement. You typically have new methods which you must document in your manual. You have new tests for the new feature, and you must make a new assessment instruction with a quality assurance and a config manager. So these are documents which change often or fairly often. So I don't want to put or edit these by hand. And let's say tests, I have to write in, we have a Tcl testing framework. The methods, the documentation for a new method is in the C++ code itself. So in the general description, I typically don't need to change something if I put a new feature in. And all these new stuff will be inserted into these documents by corresponding Tcl scripts. So you have here on the output, we have these 4 documents we want to generate, and we have on the input side the requirement list I have in an Excel file, and we have a generate specification document where this specification template is just more or less one side where the company specific templates are listed in, and it opens the Excel file and writes out the specification document. The assessment template is also a general description, and then some keywords where it reads the testing directory and extracts the documentation for the tests from the Tcl scripts. So they are always up to date and always the right size. Then to generate the assessment report, we have a run and check script. I will go into that later on. And the user manual also is like in the CAWT stuff. We have the pictures in a PowerPoint file, and we have the user manual template, and it also reads the HTML files generated by Doxygen from the C++ classes and puts all these together in a user manual in Word and PDF format. And the testing and test reporting is also done with a few Tcl scripts. We have a single Tcl tool which executes one test case. Above that we have another Tcl script which runs through all the test suites, calling that test case program. And all these test configurations are also just Tcl programs using Tcl procedure calls which are implemented in here. And these tests generate lots of image files for the tests and some log files. Afterwards, the results of the tests are checked. Here we have also a check criteria file, which is also just a Tcl script, which says, okay, for test case 1, the image must have the value x at pixel 10, and so on. And then these tests are run on the generated images, and a log file, whether the test succeeded or not, is written out. And it's also written out a script file which is called .CAWT, where the results are written out as Tcl procedures which can be then fed into the generate report. So from the report template, I use the log files, the images, and automatically generate the assessment report. So this will be run in one case or in one loop, and so the testing, the checking of the test, and the test report will be spit out after a few minutes. And the interesting stuff is that I could have combined these all in, let's say, one script, but the interesting stuff, because our system also runs on Linux, I can put these two steps on a Linux system and just put the result directory onto a network directory and then generate the test report on Windows for the Linux system or for the tests generated on the Linux system. And that's, yeah, we are using it. Parts of it also were written by Arnulf. So we have it in production now since several months, and it works quite well and saves a lot of work, hand typing. So, and I said I wanted to show you the presentation manager.
They make lazy men even lazier.
Yeah. So what you see is of course, table list. So I have a session where I said, for example, I have the directory EuroTcl presentations where I have put in all my old presentations, and greenly marked are presentations where I have all the preview images already available, and red are marked where there are no preview images. And the nice thing is now, just clicking on that stuff, typically, well, you can't read text in these preview images, but typically you have written the presentation, so you see, okay, that's this presentation and that's this slide. If you don't, you can click on that and select them, or you can just put a preview where you can quickly step through that stuff and mark, okay, I want this one, this one, this one, and this one. Enter. So they are marked here underneath. Then you can open either a new presentation or a presentation template and make a new. So it has opened an empty presentation. I say, okay, append the selected slides to this new presentation, and then I have the first slide. And so I can loop through my presentations, say, okay, just open. This was one of my earlier, this was my first, I think, EuroTcl talk, 2002 in Munich about image. So I can loop through that, select some of the slides, zack, append, and so I can easily pre-select images I want to have for a new presentation. It has some other features, but I think that's just to show what can be done with COM automation if you want to work on Windows, or have to work on Windows.
You are doing what Microsoft promises is possible in the cloud, yes?
I don't know what they're promising. So this would end my presentation, so I have finished, or so we are just in time again. Are there any questions?
But of course you put the original slides into the new presentation, not any render.
No, that's that's the original slide. It knows each preview belongs to that one, and it opens that presentation, copies that slide into the new one. So you don't have a screenshot, but really the complete slide, and that's quite usable. Yeah.
If I have an application that supports COM, but it doesn't say what kind of functions can I call, is it possible to find this out? I mean, This is not Outlook, it's not Word, it's a completely other application which I know it supports COM. But I don't know what.
Yeah, the best would be to ask the manufacturer of the application. But there's also, I think, how it's called, commit or something like that, where you can explore the methods and the parameters, but you don't get a documentation how to use it. You might know, okay, which methods the stuff supplies via COM, but you don't know how to work with it.
If you have .def file, you might be able to extract almost everything.
.def?
Yeah. It's a Microsoft format, and there are some Microsoft tools to extract from a .def file.
.def file is simply a text file that creates all the entries.
I'm not quite sure, because I looked into it with Wim and couldn't read it, but well, not understand it at least. And I worked on it 15 years ago or something like that, but I know that I just had this .def file and was able to extract so much information out of it that I could work with it.
Maybe I can answer. So normally on the COM you have two interfaces. Whether you use the typelib, then with tools you can introspect the typelib, which is basically a file, which tells you which methods are in and what are the parameters. Or you have an on-demand one. So, and there are introspection commands. There's always introspection. So if you know, okay, that's a server you connect, and then you go by introspection into it. I don't know how it works with TWAPI, but with the TCOM you have the info commands. So you can say, okay, info commands, you get the commands, and you can say info args, TWAPI info args, like that. Then you get the arguments of each command. You must be, COM is quite difficult on the arguments, especially if you have the var type. I don't know if you have any experience with the var type of.
Yeah, you have, depending on the parameter, you can't say, let's say, just specify one, but you have to explicitly cast it to an integer with, for example, expression 1. So the COM knows, okay, this is an integer.
I have made 2 or 3 full wiki pages to describe the stuff on TCOM. Yeah, but I have no experience with TWAPI stuff.
So
I'm
query possible to find out some details.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have the program, you open it as a COM, you open it as a client, and then you can ask, what do you have, what are the parameters, and so on.
What I know, there's the commit application, I think, which shows you graphically which methods are available and other stuff, but I'm not too deep into COM. I don't want to know about it. I just want to use Office stuff. So let's say stuff like this is in TWAPI. So you get the itype library, and that code I got from Ashok. He told me, okay, use this command and you get all the enumerations, because I wanted to have, let's say, all the enumerations defined in Word and Excel. And here I've written a small, it's also in the CAWT distribution. Here I get then, with the typelib read, I get all the enumeration, for example, from Word, Excel, and so on. And I generate a file like this, where all these enumerations are then written in.
Okay.
And this is, let's say, auto-generated by these scripts. And I generate this for my main purpose applications were Excel and PowerPoint. So I can use the enumeration name and don't need to remember the integer value.
So maybe I can extend the line, because I know all these comments and interfaces, and I did program COM on the C level, and it's really tedious. And I've experimented with TCOM, and I tried to understand the Excel object model. And I'm on the one hand, programming COM isn't so much different from programming TcL and model, and you have parameters in that model. And when I'm using Tcl, I'm used that I just can experiment and I will find my way through. And in COM, in my experience, it isn't this easy. You find all this information, but for me, it's always difficult to put all this together. You get an enumeration, you get parallel names and so on, but I think you don't get enough information how to use all this stuff.
Yeah, let's say for the Microsoft products, you find a lot of it in the via Google or stuff like this. Yeah. And let's more or less, let's say, what I'm using here is, so let's say the standard COM call. And most of the procedures I have are just, let's say, wrap around either one or several COM calls, so I can remember it easier. Because the COM is very low level, and that's, let's say it started out, I have written some COM stuff and found, okay, I have used several bits of code every time, put it in a procedure, and so it evaluated into this, let's say, high-level wrapper around the COM interfaces to use it more easily.
In your experience, how well documented are projects like, for example, Google Earth?
None. Google Earth is more or less deprecated the COM stuff. I just found the code on the wiki, how it programmed, and there was some, I don't know by whom, he has evaluated that COM interface and just put some of the procedures for fun into it. So as I said, most of the other stuff is just experimental or just for fun, and only the Microsoft Office I'm using at work and more or less professionally. The other.
Would you think you would find your way through all this stuff in Google Earth, for example, through introspection, if you needed to do this?
I think Google Earth don't support the COM interface anymore, I have read. So they have abandoned it. It works still in the newest version, but they officially don't support it anymore.
Let's take OCR as an example.
Yeah, that's... I don't know how the OCR. I just tried it and it worked, and let's say it's just in there because I tried it and wanted to see if it works, and I don't use it except for one or two test cases.
Is it possible to have this stuff run in headless mode? For example, to have some utility which calls Word or Excel and doesn't present a user interface.
Yeah, you can.
Excel or Word user interface.
You normally have a property which means show yes or no, and you can say to 0 and then it will show.
So you have the Excel visible. So let's say open a new Excel. So here I have put together several COM statements. So it says get or create an application. Then I get the Excel version. Here I say, okay, make a window visible or not. Okay. And here I have these as optional parameters in my utility procedure. And then I can specify the width and height if I want to show the window.
And you could have, let's say, 10 instances in parallel doing 10 jobs at the same instance.
Yeah, so that's why I have an open new, which opens a new instance, or the standard open, which uses the already running instance of Excel. Or Word, that's the same. Rolf?
Well, the scripts you use for transferring the templates to the final document, are they available as well, for examples?
Yeah, the ones for CAWT documentation are inside the package itself. So these are, so you have, it's so here I have some applications. Here are the different modules, the core module for Earth, Excel and so on. And there's a documentation directory. And here you have the generate CAWT documentation.tcl. And what you have is the user manual, so it has some figures, the one you saw in my presentation. And it has this template. So there are several things which are in general which doesn't change very often. And here you say, for example, for figures, I have keywords, so insert the figure number 1 from the PowerPoint. Then I have, let's say here I have these empty tables where I have table and I want to document the Earth or the core module. And here it reads, or it loads CAWT itself. And as I documented it with rough, the first lines of the procedure body or the short description. So I get this with the info body and extract the first line and insert this as a short description. And here I insert several other figures. I have all these procedures. Then I have a, let's say, an empty table where it should fill. It reads the directory, the test directory, and fills all the test programs available and all that stuff. And if it's finished, it's written in the final. And here you can see it has replaced the figures. Here it has inserted the procedure names available in each module with a short description and a link to the online documentation which is available on my ProSoft. This is the documentation, the reference documentation generated with RAF. And in the Word or PDF it inserts links to this reference manual.
And sorry, these texts for the short description, if I understood correctly, they must be inside the body of the procedure as comments, and not in front, not before the.
That's how the rough documentation works.
So this is other than.
That's other than the standard, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Procedure, for example.
Oh, Java,
Yeah, Java.
So this is a way because that's the way the rough documentation tool I found very useful for that expects it, and it's the nice thing is about that if you document everything that way, if you make an info body, you know, okay, the first line is a short description and that's the documentation.
Yeah,
I think
keep it in the info body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense.
That's quite nice, I think.
This is on the standard way, it's not in Python, it's called a box string. At the first line you do a multi-line string, and that one is understood by many tools. And you can also, a nice thing is, you can put a test into that box string if you mark it, and it gets executed by a test function to see that your function works correctly. So you have the documentation and the tests in all together with the function body.
Okay, so I think one question and then so maybe
was it difficult to pass from TCOM to TWAPI?
In the beginning, yes, because TWAPI doesn't support everything, which I needed for that. But as I said, Ashok was very helpful, and he said, "Okay, I'm working on the new 4 version," and he always sent me updates and developer news, and I said, okay, I don't get this one. Okay, next day I had another version, and then we took a few weeks, let's say, to have it running, and now with the newest or the 4.something version, it's from my point of view what I need feature complete the COM interface of TWAPI. And it works in 32 and 64 bits. That's the main.
They actively developed.
Yeah, and Ashok is very responsive, and he's very nice and
really deep knowledge.
yeah. because so I don't have to deal with all these low-level stuff which don't are of interest for me, but Ashok said, okay, use this one, and used it, and it worked. So it's quite good. It's like table list. You have a very nice and responsive and helpful developer behind it.